Today, we're going to build a toolkit for understanding global politics, for really making sense of why the world works the way it does. So let's jump right in.
You ever look at the news and just wonder why? Why does some countries seem to be thriving while others are just stuck in this endless cycle of conflict? What are the deep currents that push a nation towards democracy or drag it down into authoritarianism? These are the huge, fundamental questions we're going to tackle today. Well, the key to answering all of this is a field called comparative politics. And for our purposes, our roadmap for this whole journey is this actual university syllabus. It's the real deal. It lays out exactly how political scientists learn to compare different political systems to find real answers.
All right, so let's start with the basics. What's the core mission of this field? It's not just about, memorizing flags and capitals. It's about spotting the deep, underlying patterns that connect them all. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. This quote from the syllabus says it all. The goal isn't just to study different countries, but to actively challenge old assumptions. For a long, long time, this field was very Eurocentric, meaning it basically used Europe as the default model for everything. The crucial point here, the big shift, is to decenter that view and really try to understand countries on their own terms. So to do that kind of analysis, you're going to need the right tools. Think of these as different lenses. You can look at the exact same problem, but each lens is going to reveal something completely new and important. And here are the main tools in the kit, straight from our syllabus. Some of them, like the formal institutional approach, focus on the hard rules, the laws and official structures. Others, like the culture-centric approach, look at the softer stuff, like values and history. And others dig into economics or the political systems themselves. Each one gives you a totally different angle. Let's just compare two of them to see how this works. The formal institutional approach might ask, how does this country's constitution actually affect its election results? Pretty straightforward. But a culture-centric approach would ask something completely different, like, how do the historical traditions in this society shape how people even talk about politics? See? Same country, different lens, totally different insight. Okay, so now that we have our toolkit, let's focus on the main subject of all this analysis, the state. This is the fundamental building block of the entire world map. So what even is a state? Well, at its core, it's the organization that has the ultimate authority over a territory. It makes the laws, it collects the taxes, and, this is the critical part, it's the only one that can legitimately use force through its police or military. This concept is absolutely central to everything else. And states didn't just appear out of nowhere. The syllabus shows us this whole historical progression. It starts with big philosophical debates about what a state even should be, then moves through how power got consolidated in Europe and elsewhere. It looks at how social classes and economic systems like capitalism shaped them. And then, of course, there's the massive wave of decolonization in the 20th century that completely remade the modern world. And of course, states come in all different forms. They can be federal systems like the United States, or something else entirely. They can be democracies that protect individual rights, or authoritarian regimes that crush them. The syllabus also points to the rise of the security state, where government surveillance and control become a really central part of the whole system. But here's the thing, states are never static. They're constantly being shaped and reshaped by these incredibly powerful forces. So now let's look at the engines of political change, development and revolution. Development is a major force, and how we think about it has changed a lot. The syllabus charts this perfectly. We started in the 50s with this idea of modernization, that all countries could just follow a single path to get rich. But by the 60s and 70s, people started to argue that maybe the whole global system was designed to keep some nations in a state of underdevelopment. And this eventually led to critiques that questioned the very meaning of development itself. And sometimes, change isn't gradual, it's explosive. This is where you get social movements and revolutions. Political scientists study what pushes people to get organized and demand change. And by comparing revolutions across history, from France to Russia to Iran, we can start to see these common patterns, these triggers for a complete overthrow of the state. So, we've covered the core mission, the analytical tools, the state, and the forces of change. So, what does all this mean for you? This is the real power of comparative politics. It gives you a framework. So when you see a news story about a protest in another country, you can now start asking deeper questions. Is this a new social movement? What does the form of the state tell me about how the government is probably going to react? It's not just academic stuff, it's a practical guide for being an informed citizen of the world. Ultimately, what we've just walked through is a blueprint for understanding how our world is politically wired. The map is now in your hands, so the only question left is, where are you going to start to explore?